to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. And I got to tell you, we have two brothers on today who, they had a book come out last year, and they have a singles album that they're just bringing out, and you all know them from their iconic song, I'm Too Sexy. But I'll tell you, I really like the song, You're My Mate, which I want to talk to about them because I really like it. And it's the Fairbrass brothers, Richard and Fred, and it's Right Said Fred. How you guys doing?
Hey man, how are you?
We're fine, thank you, mate.
We're very well, thank you.
Yeah, we're very good.
Yep,
yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Nice to be here.
So,
Yeah.
I got to talk to you guys. You've had a very lengthy career.
Yep.
What got you into music? Because I know you before Right Said Fred, you were musicians, you played with different people. But did you grow up with a musical household? Because for two brothers to follow, like my brother could play drums. I sucked at any music. I ended up doing stand-up comedy for a career for many years. Completely different, but in the arts. What was it like for you? Were you both musicians growing up, or how did this whole career start in this life?
I suppose
Mum and Dad weren't musical.
No, Mum and Dad weren't musical.
Mum sort of.
Mum, was a sort of frustrated dancer
And singing.
and singer. Dad was more of a manual kind of guy, really. And I started playing guitar when I was about 12. I just fell in love with the idea, having seen a school band, who I thought were pretty dreadful. I thought, I've got to be able to do better than that. So I started learning guitar. Then Richard picked up the bass about 2 years later, I think. And we just sort of naturally started writing together. We were never really interested in... Loads of bands at the time were playing other people's songs. Or any friends I had in the music industry, or music industry people in bands, they're all out doing cover versions. That never appealed to us. I only ever wanted to learn guitar so I could write some songs. So then we went on the road. First tour was 1978. That was with a New York duo called Suicide.
Yep.
On that tour, we did a show with Joy Division and a British punk band called The Addicts, all sorts of different bands. And then we were in and out of record deals through the 80s. We both did a little bit of session work. I played with Bob Dylan in 86, which was connected to a film. Richard did some work with David Bowie during the Loving for Blue Jean period.
Yeah.
Both did a little bit of promo work with Mick Jagger. And then we got signed to Capital EMI in 1987 in New York. That went fabulously wrong. And
absolutely.
So we came back and formed Right Said Fred in 89, I think.
What happened in New York? You both laughed. What happened in New York? you both shrugged that off.
We were given a development check.
Development deal, yeah.
The development deal. But what we got was a personal check from the guy that was looking after managing us at the time.
Yeah.
Which wasn't anything like the development money we were initially...
50k went missing.
50k, yes.
Which was meant to pay for our album.
Which was meant to pay for the album. But anyway, water under the bridge. But the really interesting thing, we had a really good time in New York. We were there for about 6 months or something. It was a very exciting place back then. It was good for us to get away. It was really a little bit like... What's happened to New York, I think, is what's happened to London. Probably it's just become a shadow of its former self in many from an artistic point of view. But we had a really good time there, and we just went out and did live vocal to track. That's what we did. Yeah,
people thought we were mad because we used to walk around with we had a Walkman with a backing track on cassette.
Yeah.
And I'd plug my guitar in, which would plug his vocals in, and we just started jumping around this sort of baby sort of punky sort of thing.
You can't imagine what it was like.
We were nuts, but we did the Knitting Factory, and we all the stuff on Bleecker Street, and a whole bunch of gigs around New York at that time. And that's how we got spotted by a bunch of record labels at the Knitting Factory, I think. And that's how we got the deal with Capital EMI.
Yeah.
Now, going back to your youth, though, who were your influences? Like, how did you formulate? I mean, you ended up playing with Bowie and Dylan. Legends.
Yeah.
But who were your influences? I mean, because then you opened for Joy Division, who were a great band. But did you have certain influences? Because my age, I had a brother who played classic rock. I love classic rock, and I'm 59. Okay. So then once the 80s came, MTV, we're like, holy shit. All these people from England, look at the way they dress. They're all handsome. Look, we get this scrubby little guy playing, like the California rock. But who were your influences when you guys were younger? Like, who did you listen to? I mean, because it had to be being over in England, there was such a great scene.
It was.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, we were sort of into the glam rock scene. So we listened to bands like T-Rex and Sparks and who else was there?
David Bowie.
Only Bowie, yeah. dare I say it, Gary Gliff at the time. I know we
not allowed to say him anymore.
Not allowed to mention his name anymore, but he made some great,
pop records,
irrespective of his private life.
Yeah.
And then we were listening to.
You were Bob Dylan.
Yeah, I mean, I was
a
big singer-songwriter fan. I love Paul Simon, Bob Dylan. But in terms of the band sound, we kind of we were attracted to Talking Heads.
Yeah.
We were the whole New York CBGB thing. We were quite into.
Iggy Pop.
Iggy Pop and early Blondie, Television. Marquee Moon is one of my favourite albums.
A lot of the stuff we listened to was American.
Yeah. The glam rock thing was very British.
Glam rock was.
In terms of other bands, it tended to be American most of the time. And we weren't really into. We didn't never fitted into the British punk thing. That never appealed to us. We did like the Clash because I thought they were good songwriters, just really good pop writers, irrespective of the genre, Then we were the new romantic thing we didn't get into, and then bit by bit we got more into we got into the whole house scene, which was breaking.
Well, you did.
Yeah,
I didn't at all.
Yeah, I got into the house scene very early 80s.
I was staying in the house.
Staying in the house. Yeah. And I kind of got into the whole. Not so much the Chicago stuff, but certainly a lot of the stuff coming out of Ibiza. That sort of there's a lot of the mixes coming out then, and then it was Pump Up the Volume by Mars, where I suddenly thought, man, this is the way to go.
That song, man, when that would hit the clubs, because I grew up near Philadelphia, I lived back there. There were certain songs, the dance floor would get packed.
That's true.
And that always reminded, because it was in a movie called Bright Lights, Big City, and there was, a lot of cocaine used in that. So everyone always thought that was like, in the East Coast, that was like a cocaine song. Everyone associated it because of the movie.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the other one was, at the time I used to listen to a lot of rock, but I used to, not Grateful Dead, Deep Purple. I used to listen to Deep Purple all the time. Really. And Led Zeppelin too, really loud.
Moment, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
I was buying Cream live.
Disraeli Gears.
Yeah, and the Disraeli Gears I love. So I think we were quite into the rock thing, but in terms of us being influenced by what we wanted to do, I think it was more of the...
It was a sort of songwriter stuff.
It was songwriter and some of the quirky more... I always thought the New York scene was better than the London scene, personally. I thought it was quirky. I thought Television and Talking Heads particularly were really... interesting bands, and I liked a bit of Devo, and then we got into Beefheart a little bit. I know it's not New York scene, but got into more the poppy side. I'm not a trout master.
No, it was more. It was more the song. It was more the top line of anything that got us. Either the groove, as Fred was saying, with the EDM stuff and all that, or it was the top line. So we would, so sometimes I listen to Billy Joel for, the New York State of Mind, because it's just, the writing is just so good. So it depends what it is. I mean, you don't go to Iggy Pop for great writing, you go for attitude. So it depends what mood you're in. My favourite thing at the moment, which I can't stop playing, is Jason Aldean. I can't stop playing that.
I'm good friends with his drummer, and that opening, that drum solo is Rich, his drummer, playing that, because we met in the Hollywood Hills at a party. From Lucky Larra from the Circle Jerks. He has a big house. We met at a party and we hit it off. And when he was in town, he used to crash at me and my wife's place. So it's funny you said that, because that was a drum solo.
I mean, also there's people we listen to now like Frank Black. Right. Not heavy stuff, but there's Honeycomb. His album Honeycomb I really like.
There's quite a lot of country. I like Chris Stapleton.
Yeah.
And Blake Shelton.
Darkest Rucker. I love Darkest
Rucker. Darius Rucker.
Darius Rucker, sorry.
There's a few things. It's a mix, actually. It's a real mix. My playlists are quite eclectic.
Also, we listen to ZZ Top and Leonard Skinner and all that Americana stuff.
You had some rock influences and stuff like that. When did you guys start writing music? Was it at a certain age? Because a lot of people don't know you've written for a lot of people. But when did you start sitting there and writing music that you felt confident in? Because if you're growing up listening to Dylan and you're hearing Dylan's lyrics, you're really setting a high bar. It's not like you're sitting there hitting, you're like, oh well, it's Dylan.
You're absolutely right.
So when did you guys start feeling like you were getting into the groove of writing, and did you do it together?
Sort of. I started on my own.
Yeah.
Then Rich and I started writing together. But then, talking about confidence, I would say me think. I think sort of early 80s where we started to feel confident about what we were writing.
Yeah.
Because we were being sort of followed. Excuse me. During gigs, we were being looked at by record companies, and we knew we had a couple of songs that had good hooks. We knew we had there's a couple of songs we had back then, and the hooks were strong. Maybe the delivery wasn't right, the production certainly wasn't right, but we knew. One thing we knew early on is that for all our faults, which there are many, we can hear a hook, and we're good at spotting hooks in other people's songs. And that's one argument we have a lot when we work with other musicians, particularly instrumentalists, like if it's a lead guitar player, piano player. They generally are too busy. And I say, you've got a hook there, play the hook. It's all great, you can go diddly, 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 that's fantastic, but lots of people can do that. But if you've got a hook, which is why I love Billy Gibbons or Peter Green or those guys, they've got a real ear for understanding what a guitar hook can do. Well, Keith Richards being not the obvious guy, but and I think that's a real talent. So I think if we
early 80s would be the time, I think.
Yeah, that's when we started writing stuff and thinking, well, we're getting record company interest, and we started. We started to get some interest from our writing. Yeah,
we just used to. It was just two of us, and we would just walk into restaurants with an acoustic guitar. We weren't invited. We'd just walk in, put everybody off their starter, and get thrown out.
Yeah, we never played covers.
That's how it worked.
We just gate crashed restaurants and events and just walk in and start playing. But the writing was always our big thing. We never played cover versions, and we just thought if we can't grab someone with our own stuff, then we're doing something wrong.
Exactly.
Now, how did you get the deal for your first album? I mean, was it something that, you already got screwed over in New York? So, anything you sort of get people don't understand in the entertainment world, there's a lot of bitter taste in your mouth. People all think it's all roses and all. No, there's a lot of shit. You get shit on a lot. And that's just basically, that's true. Yeah. How did you guys get your first record deal? And before you got that, how did you stay confident? Because you just got screwed over from New York. You're young guys. You want to get this stuff going. It's got to shatter you a little bit.
It is, yeah. We're quite... I wouldn't say that's the word.
I think we're stubborn.
We're stubborn. I think we're not arrogant people, but we are very stubborn, and we are pretty good at getting back up when we've been knocked down. I don't know why we do, but we do, and maybe that's our parenting. I'm not really sure. But what happened was we came back from New York. We saw with our tails between our legs because we chucked all our jobs in and told everybody that
had to go back to the same jobs.
Had to go back to the same restaurant. And
that wasn't great.
Hell,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Hi. Yeah, hello. How'd it go in New York then?
Yeah. So, we were like 50 odd grand worse off and still pretty upset about that. But what we then decided was let's do something. Let's change the flavour. Let's not relight what we had before. Let's not rekindle that stuff. So I was working we had loads of part-time jobs, and one of my jobs was working in a local studio, just driving gear around bands and stuff. And I mentioned to them, I said, do you know a local player, this harp player, who might be up for doing some writing? And they said, there's this guy, Rob Manzoli. So I said, cool. Okay, so I gave him a ring, and we hooked up, and we were really blunt from the beginning. I said, we're not going to bore you with any of our ideas, and we don't want you to bore us with any of your ideas. What we're going to do is write something new, but that you've never written and we have never written.
That we all like.
Yeah. So we came up with this, I think Richard came up with the bass line, and we had this sort of slightly house groove going on. And we're trying to write this song, and then we're in this basement studio, and it was hot and everything else. And this is 1990, about August, September in London. Yeah. And then Richard just started, I think Richard, you've been smoking a bit of spliff and stuff, and so then the song was going around, and the bass line was ba 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 ba. It's a bass line. So Richard starts
an E major scale.
Too sexy for my shirt. They start singing that, right? So I wasn't sure. Then Rob starts laughing, thinks it's hysterical. So then we thought, well, actually, this is actually not a bad idea, to being too sexy for something. We'd just come back from New York, as we said. It was very hedonistic, supermodels. It was a lot of partying going on, a lot of hedonistic stuff. And we were thinking about some of the people we met. So we started writing this song about these crazy people, actually, particularly the women, who thought they're too sexy. And Richard worked in Nels as well.
Yeah,
Richard worked in the Nels.
Lots of people there who thought they were too
sexy.
Loads
of the beautiful people.
Yeah.
So what is Nels? What is Nels?
Nels was a club in New York, very high-end, very, dressed to impress.
It was Nell from Rocky Horror.
Nell from the Rocky Horror Show.
Yeah.
And it was a very hip club in the 80s, mid 80s, and it'd be a queue for days. And Richard was working on the door, And I was working at Trash and Vaudeville, was a very famous rock and roll clothing shop in Astor Place. And so we both come across these sort of people. So we had this idea going around. We started thinking, I'm too sexy. Well, what can you be too sexy for? So had this whole list of cities and things and people. And then we thought, we don't want people because they come and go. And so let's do things that stay, which is your body and hats, Milan, cities where people are hedonistic.
Yeah.
And fashion is a big thing. So we went through all these things, and then we had Rob had a guitar line, da 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 da, and we thought, well, let's just sing the guitar line. We sung the bass line. So let's sing the guitar line. So then I wrote the lyric, I'm a model, you know what I mean?
Clever stuff.
And so I wrote that, and then we basically finished the song off, and we worked with a different couple of people, and we realised it needed sort of a house groove, so we worked with a DJ that I knew, and we got the single is now, people know, that was pretty much the demo. And so that's on the single. It's a lot of the original demos on that single, a lot, including the vocal. And so we start playing it to record companies. They all hate it. They all hate it without even a sign of interest. And everyone. We sent out about 30 cassettes.
And DJs, actually.
And DJs. We went everywhere. And the girl from the studio we recorded it in, Townsend, she was working in the studio, and she said, "This is a hit record." I said, "Well, so we think it is, but no one will touch it." So she said, "If I can get this on radio and we get some traction, can I manage you?" She's only 17. And so we said, "Yeah, you can do what you want." So she goes off, and about 3 weeks later, she says, "Listen to you better tune in to Simon Bates' breakfast show."
Which was a big.
I think at the time it was the biggest radio show in Europe. It was huge. So we're sitting there, and suddenly Simon Bates, God love him, he plays it from the acetate. He said, "I've got this song come out of nowhere." He said, "I don't know what to think of it, but hey, you let me know what you think." So he plays "I'm Too Sexy." And apparently the phones go insane. People ringing up, "I love this track," and all this sort of stuff. And then he plays it again. I think he played it back to back. And then suddenly we was thinking, "Oh, this is great." We didn't think much of it, but isn't that fantastic? And so we get back to our gym and we're working. So the phone starts going. It's newspapers and what's going on with this track. And so what happened is that it got released by a promotions company who did promoting for music and stuff. A record company still wouldn't touch it. So they've basically put a record company, a label. They serviced the label with our track, and they invented this record company called Tug. And so that basically, going back to original, how did the first album come? The album came out, the first single, which was "I'm Too Sexy." We didn't get a record deal until after our second single, which was "Don't Talk, Just Kiss," which was also a very big song for us. And then we signed a record deal. So "I'm Too Sexy" was charting all around the world, and we didn't have a record deal.
Why do you think that is? I mean, it's sort of weird, because record companies, they want money. And if you see two guys who aren't that known, and all of a sudden your song people are loving it, you think they'd come up and swoop you up just to contain you, to say, "You know what? Hey, we don't want them to escape." Did you ever find out later why people weren't taking a chance?
Well, we found out that heads of A&R got sacked for not signing it. We do know that. That's a fact. Record company people years later denied they ever heard it, but we know they did. And I used to have all the faxes from them saying how rubbish it was, but that's got long lost in storage, I think. And we never really found out why. We've never fitted in as a band. And once Sexy started breaking America, obviously Sony and the rest of them got on the phone and said, "We want to sign you." At which point we thought, well, this is breaking without you, so why would we sign to you now? So we never have signed a major record deal. We sort of stuck to our independent guns. We never found why they hated it so much. I don't know why they didn't sign it when the biggest radio station was playing it. I don't know.
I think there's something about us that we kind of pull back whenever we sense the big machine coming in.
Yeah, we don't like it.
We just do. And when you walk into some record company foyer and the carpet is 6 inches deep. And there's, you know what I mean? And you just get this feeling, do I want to be a part of this? It just doesn't feel right. And we're actually, although we're poorer now than we ever have been, we are happier than we've ever been. I think that's probably it.
So we play with them. Sorry, go.
No, go ahead.
No, when the band, when it first broke, we did what we were told.
Yeah, we did.
When the label and subsequent labels around the world said jump, we did say how high. And then after about, I think it was at the Brits in '92, and we had a #1 album, #1 single, and a #1 in America. I think that's what it was, and loads of other ones around the world. And the Brits, which is the British Music Awards, they completely ignored us. And we thought, well, if they aren't going to take any notice of us when we've got this success, then we're clearly not part of a club. We're clearly not in this club. And at that point, we just started to back off, and we thought. We had stuff booked. We went to America and we did what was expected of us. But once that was done, we started backing off quite a lot because we didn't. The machine it's so not for us. So we purposely became very difficult with our record company, and they actually moved offices. Our record company
without telling us.
They didn't tell us.
Now, what was it like as the single is blowing up in America, the video's blowing up in America?
Yeah.
The video, I mean, it's iconic. You guys, it's not. You're two different looking guys. It's a great video, and people remember it. And I mean, I remember when that song came out, and everyone loved it. What was it like for you coming back to America from when you left with your tails between your legs, leaving New York? When you came back, what was the experience like when America pretty much embraced you?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a bit of.
It was frightening.
It was frightening, but it was also
frightening.
A lot of, I fucking told you so.
Yeah.
There was quite a lot of that going on. We thought we told you we'd do this. And so we obviously, people who had been working with us contacted us and suddenly, oh, guys, always love your work, that sort of stuff. But it was great. It was terrifying because of the speed of the record and we couldn't really catch up with it. But also it was very rewarding. You see your name top of Billboard. You're getting accolades from all sorts of people. Every show is sold out, and that's a good feeling, and it makes you think, no, what we got this right.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was great. I mean, I'm not going to deny it. It was fantastic. I just think for us, what happened was our celebrity status overtook our music status very quickly.
Yeah, it did.
That must be hard because, as you said, that song you think, and then you have the certain look. I mean, you must have been getting recognized everywhere. I mean, it must have been something, both in America and over back in London. I mean, what is it like when all of a sudden your privacy disappears? Now, I know there's a lot of fun, there's a lot of free drinks, there's a lot of stuff in the beginning, but after a while, you're like, Jesus, okay, can I just go out and get a cup of coffee? I don't need something like that. But what was it like for you guys when that was starting to happen? Did you get closer as brothers, or did you spend time apart? Because you going out together, people are going to recognize, there's Right Said Fred. But what was it like? What was that part of your life like? And did it put any stress on your relationship as brothers?
It's very difficult because Richard was living with his boyfriend. And being gay back in '91 was not that cool in a lot of areas. The press in London were horrible, as they always are. UK press.
The Sun wasn't too bad.
No, the Sun wasn't too bad, but most of the UK press was pretty horrible. Started stalking Richard and his boyfriend a lot. I went out on my own quite a lot because Rob was quite a reclusive guy, so I'd go out on my own quite a lot with mates. And it was great on the one hand because I could get any table in any restaurant, any club, and met a lot of beautiful women, which was fantastic. But that has a novelty aspect to it, which you think after a while actually.
What you were saying.
It kind of wears off after a while, and then you realise you can't even go shopping. You can't, I'm down the garage getting my wheel fixed, and I've got paparazzi, all that sort of stuff, and that started getting a bit boring. And that's what I meant with the celebrity thing. We started in the UK. We became just household names really, really quickly. And the fame of the way we look and the band and our image started to overshadow anything we did musically. So, and we were turning up for loads of interviews and sort of talk shows in America and all around the world. And in some cases, they didn't know what we did. They said, well, what do you guys do? So we said, well, we're a band. Oh,
we were just there because they'd seen us somewhere.
Yeah, so why you booked us? We booked you because we saw you on Arsenio Hall or MTV or Howard Stern or whatever, So there was this sort of domino thing going on, nothing to do with what we wrote or sung or anything. No. And so, and that's why we started after about 9 months or 12 months, we started to think, this isn't exactly what we signed up for. So we started to, become a bit difficult. and we weren't enjoying it. We started us and Rob started arguing a little bit. We fell out with management, and
it was the usual story.
The usual story. Heard it all before.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, we were. I think what the problem was, we were never really a band. Me, Richard, and Rob wrote one song together, which was "I'm Too Sexy." The whole thing went mental. Then suddenly we had to become this band and this writing team, and we never had time to really go out on the road and work together and get to know each other. So we were, me, Richard, and Rob as a three-piece were not very.
We didn't coalesce at all.
No, with no chance to actually get to know each other. So we got to know each other in front of the cameras, and that wasn't a very pleasant experience for anybody.
No. Also, you think it doesn't matter how old you are. You could break when you're 50 and you're still not ready. You think you're ready for the consequences of being successful, but actually you never are. And there are some artists who I take my hat off to them because they are just amazing at being good at being famous.
Some people are brilliant.
Some people are just really good at being famous. And I I never really, that whole thing where you have to stand in front of the board with the name of the media board. I should love that. I should love it, but I just feel like a bit of a dick. I just do.
Well, I think a lot of times that is. I think that people, most artists, I always say we're a mix of we're insecure and we're narcissists. I mean, it's just something we both have that. So where we want it, and then all of a sudden when we start getting it, we don't know how to react to it because we're like, just like you said. Well, if I enjoy this, people are going to go, "What a dick," And so I think that's what happens.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's absolutely true. Actually, I think that is true. Yeah, I mean, we get. I'm better at it now than we both better at it now.
Yeah, we are.
Than we were. Asking for when people in the early days when people came asking for autographs and stuff. I felt myself blushing. I used to go bright red. But now people are really nice. Everybody's nice. We both got used to it, and it doesn't bother us so much. But in the early days, it was a bit of a car crash.
Yeah, it's a big shift. It's a big learning curve.
It's a big shift.
Yeah. Well, you said after I'm Too Sexy, you were getting booked on these shows, and people didn't know what you did. Because they were just. How does that make you feel as a songwriter? Because all you guys want to do is make music. It's not like you're sitting there going, "We want to be, on America's Got Talent." I mean, how did it make you feel, and how did you sit there and start concentrating on writing music? Because I know the first song after I'm Too Sexy, if it's not like I'm Too Sexy, they're going to, "What is this?" And then, the next album, your fans are going to go, "Well, we want something we can dance to." How did you guys combat that, and how did you start developing it? Because, like I said, You're My Mate's a great song. Nothing like Too Sexy. But how did you start developing that writing style, saying, did you just say to yourself, "Fuck it, we don't want to write like I'm Too Sexy, we just want to write that comes from our heart"?
Yes, we knew we couldn't write. We knew that we didn't want to write another I'm Too Sexy. We knew that.
Yeah.
And
I'm not sure we know how to, really.
No, and also you have to, I think musicians should be a bit like sharks. You just need to keep moving.
Yeah.
You can't continually rely on your back catalogue. I don't think you can. I think if you're creative, you have to keep moving forward.
Yes,
I think so, and that's what we try and do. So, and sometimes the songs work, and sometimes they don't. But the one thing that we really enjoy. Oh, let me go and get that.
Sorry,
I thought that. Sorry.
Pause finger. We've got someone at the door.
That's okay. That's no problem. Now, where are you guys at now? Where do you live now?
We're in Windsor, in Berkshire, just west of Heathrow.
Okay.
So we actually we got a place here because London just became unbearable, and then and we did this shortly before lockdowns. Thinking we could be because we fly so much, and then we were close to the airport, and then obviously all the flying stopped. So that was kind of bizarre. But it's a very nice part of the world. We're very lucky. It's a very beautiful county. Yeah.
So what we were saying about the writing when you started,
Yes.
when you were sitting there focusing, how did you start focusing again?
What we had was we write a lot. So what happened was I had a title for a song called "Don't Talk Just Kiss," and we knew we wanted to use some house beats. We knew we wanted a similar backing track to "Sexy," but not the same writing. So what we did, we had this song, and Rob had a riff, like a legato. Da, 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 da. So we put this "Don't Talk Just Kiss" baby on. So we wrote this. We put a dance track, a song over this sort of dance groove, and people were a bit unsure initially, but the song for us, not so much in America, but certainly in Europe and Japan and South America, it just went mental. And certainly as big as Sexy in certain countries, not in the States, but certainly did very well in Canada, did top 5 record over here.
Better in Germany, actually.
Than Sexy. In some countries it broke us. Where Sexy, where people didn't get the humour of Sexy. Yeah. Don't Touch This Kiss is much more, it's like a traditional kind of dance record, really. And so places like Germany, Benelux, Japan, South America, that Don't Touch This Kiss broke us in those countries. Yeah. Well, so it was very good to us.
Well, Sexy was #1 in the States, but it wasn't #1 in England. Okay. Does that piss you off? Like, as an artist, you sit there and go, screw them. You know what? We're #1 in the States. I mean, I would always think you always want to do good in your home area. But I mean, as an artist, what do you go through all of a sudden? Or if you have other songs that #1 in Germany, #1 here, but not #1 in where you're from. I mean, do you just not even care about that as long as you're making money and people are enjoying your music?
Exactly.
The speed of I'm Too Sexy, it caught everybody by surprise, no more so than us. So the fact we had this little record that everybody hated in sort of January 1991, and then come August 91, it's just breaking out everywhere. We were more than happy. A top 20 record in the UK would have been fine, and it was #2 in the UK for about 10 weeks or something mad. I can't remember now. And then the following single, Dippy Dippy, was *1, and that was #1 in the UK.
You have to remember where we were coming from. We were coming from being skint, absolutely nowhere. Yeah. So we've been asked this question before, obviously, and whether it irritated us, and it really, really didn't. Because one of the things I do think about being #1 is there's only one place to go after that.
Right.
You can't keep going up. If I was Jason Aldean, I'd be thinking, oh my God, how am I going to follow this up? There is an element of that when you have a big record. There's always an element of what are we going to do next? Definitely.
There is, yeah.
Now, I was listening to your music yesterday, and you guys wrote a Christmas song.
We did.
Tell me about that. I love Christmas songs. I'm one of these guys. I grew up. I can listen. Being from New Jersey, Santa Claus is Coming to Town by Bruce Springsteen always means it's Christmas, and it's something. And I've always loved watching MTV Christmas videos. What makes you decide to write a Christmas song? I always wonder because everyone loves, unless you're Jewish, and even Jewish people I'm friends with love Christmas songs. But everyone pretty much loves Christmas songs. But what makes like an artist sit there and go, you know what? I know Lamal did one 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And people just do. What made you guys decide to write a Christmas song?
We
did it in the sun.
Yeah, we wrote it in Spain. When it was boiling. And it was written because we were talking to a guy who's an animator called...
John T. Weeble.
Yeah, called Mr. Weeble. He does animation online. And a friend of his had a song title called, and it was You're the Best Thing About Christmas, because I think someone has said it to him, something. And he gave us the title, and we were sitting in Spain, and we were thinking, well, we should think about this because Christmas doesn't take. You have to set the record up. So we just wrote this, and it just worked. And then we did this sort of mad kind of,
I love it,
techno kind of a 3-minute bonkers. And John T. wrote that we did these great lyrics with Mr. Weeble about how you're better than pants and socks, and this whole rap thing comes out in the middle of the record, and we really like it. I think the animation was great, and it never got much attention over here. But we're really proud of it. I like that song a lot.
It also we consciously tried not to sexualize it.
Yes,
so it could be about your dog or your fish tank or anything. It's just because some people have things in their life which that are really important to them, but that are not necessarily partners.
Now, do you think because I'm Too Sexy, that has given you a creative path to really experiment as you've gone on, because it was such a different #1 hit? And do you think that has sat there, and as you said, you added the stuff in the middle of the Christmas song? You think people say, hey, it's cool because, Right Said Fred is hip. Like, do you think that because that song was #1, it's given you, I know it's probably in the beginning, it trapped you a little bit in what wanted to hear, but in the long run as artists, do you think that's given you somewhat some creative freedom?
It's certainly abroad. In the UK, not. In the UK, we personally both find the UK market very conservative. It's a very sort of blinkered market, really, compared to what we like to do. So we've tend to find most of our support coming out of Europe, really, in terms of we're given the space to do stuff, and that's why we did "You're My Mate," because we really like the idea of this kind of drinking song.
Yeah, not love, not about love.
No, and
friendship.
We really like this sort of, and that's what we wrote the song about. It's about friendship, and it's a drinking song, really. And in the middle it says, "All I want to do is get drunk here with you." That's the So I think it's certainly abroad. We and also it's interesting the way our songs break. We were sent a video of "You're My Mate" from a line dancing club in Texas.
Yes.
And they were doing line dancing to "You're My Mate."
Gay line dancing.
Gay line dancing, yeah. And then we've got another song called "Stand Up," and that just broke as a football song. So it's a sports song really. So it's been in the World Cup, and the NFL have used it, and all around the world. So it's interesting how a song has a journey. You can't really control that, and so I'm sure. When Jack White wrote Seven Nation Army, he never thought for a second it would be picked up by football fans, but it has.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned earlier in the 90s, the press was very hard on you because you were gay. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, have you seen that change? Because we living in America, we think that there's more acceptance, but then you go some places and you go, holy shit, there's no acceptance. I mean, you do. You go, wait, what the? I hear people say stuff like, what are you like living in Kentucky? This is like Philadelphia. But for you, have you noticed? Is it being more accepted? And did you have a huge gay crowd when they found out that you were gay?
No, the record company felt that we assumed that we would have. And we did a gig at a gay club in Blackpool, I think, and we actually got booed off because they thought I was a straight bloke taking the mickey out of gay people. So all the fan letters that I personally have ever had have always been from women or families or kids. I think I've had 3 gay fan letters in my entire life. So that's never, but it has definitely changed. Although what I would say, as you quite rightly say, it depends. A lot of it is postcode driven. So we live in Berkshire. We're close to London. It's a very middle class kind of area. There are parts of London you cannot walk down now if you're 2 guys holding hands.
Yeah, it'd be difficult.
Or if you're a woman in a short dress, you just can't do it. Whether it's a Jewish area, the Muslim area, whatever it happens to be,
certain areas could be difficult.
There are going to be problems.
Yes,
but in terms of the industry, I think it's much less of an issue than it was. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and I think papers know that that whole gay plague, bashing the gay thing is kind of, people have had it. I think it's kind of yesterday's news really.
So you came out with singles, and you've written a lot. How do you think your writing style has changed since '91? Like, have you, as you said, at 50, sometimes you're never sure, you're not prepared for success. But has your writing grown? Do you feel it's grown as you've grown? Because we're not the same people we were 30 years ago. And so I think, like, for me, I don't do stand-up much anymore. But when I do, my act's completely different from when I did it, because I'm a different person. I'm not, and plus the climate's different in what you can say. But we've grown as writers. Have you guys grown, do you think? I mean, do you sit there and go, we really are, our opinions are different when we write? Or how has your writing changed in the last 30 years, and then even the last 20 years?
I think it's a bit more introspective on some occasions.
Yeah.
I think there's some songs on the singles album, a song called Godsend, a song called During the Light is Love, a bit more retrospective, a bit more introverted. But we are writing at the moment, and in fact, what we're working on at the moment is the opposite of that. It's a very kind of utopia, hands in the air, let's have a good time kind of dance track.
Also, sometimes you just need to visualize in your head, what do you want to write?
Yes. Yeah.
What do you actually want to write?
Yeah.
We do try, and with Sexy, it was organic, and some of the songs are organic. They just happen. You come up with a little top line or a lyric or whatever it is, and it grows from there. If you sit down consciously and we're going to start doing a bit of writing, it helps to have a bit of a thing in your head about where you're going, visualizing the audience, visualizing what makes you happy, what gives you confidence to perform. It's a mixture of things,
How do you share the writing? Because one's bass, one's guitar. How do you sit there? Do you really do you really collaborate and sit down together, or we're in a day and age now where you can go in one room and play something, you can go to one room and play something, and then you can just send files, and all of a sudden, boom, it's all together. But what is your process now? Like, who is there someone who's in charge of the lyrics and someone who's more in charge of the music, or is it 50-50?
I tend to do most of the lyrics, generally, not always, but generally, and we collaborate very much 50-50 on the music. And quite often we write from bass lines. We work on a track at the moment that's driven around a bass line Richard has got. We write from guitar riffs quite often, or little chord sequences. So one of us will have a germ of an idea, and we just record it onto our smartphones generally. We write in a very old-fashioned way. Neither of us are programmers. We don't use GarageBand or anything like that. So we will literally just hum an idea onto a recorder, a recording device, and then we will take the bare bones of an idea. We normally do like a work in progress day in the studio where we map out, okay, we quite like what we've done there, and then we'll take it away and we'll live with it, and then we'll maybe go back and so it's Rich and I tend to work quite closely on it, and if we don't agree on something, then generally the idea is not right. We tend to find that if we both agree, the idea tends to be in the right place.
Also, I think from a songwriting point of view, I think it's quite good not to be really, familiar with all the technical paraphernalia that goes on, because it forces you back onto the basics. I think if we were really proficient in the studio and one of us could program and the other could arrange all that, I think the writing would get lost in the technicalities of it. I think sometimes when it's just guitar and voice, if it doesn't stand up, it doesn't stand up.
Yeah, we're quite primal in that way, aren't we? Because we tend to, we work on chords later on. I mean, some of our chord patterns are incredibly basic, but
Buddy Holly.
Yeah. I mean, loads of good ones. You mentioned Jason Aldean. That's a pretty cool choice.
Absolutely.
And so I think sometimes we stick with the original chord sequence. Other times we'll think, you know what, let's try and shift this around a bit. And so we'll look at our alternatives and keys. And we spend a lot of time on the key because Richard's a bass baritone, so we have to consider the top note, the top end, and we work down from that and see where we can live.
Now, what made you decide to come out with a singles album at this point in your career? You have had 8 studio albums, is it 8 or 9?
Yeah.
So what was it sit there? Because once again, we always age ourselves. We grew up at the time of albums. You go, you play an album, and it's great. Now, young people just buy tracks, so it makes sense to have a singles album because you sit there and go, oh, we love these songs. But why now? I mean, because you could have done it a few years back. You could have done it at a different time, but was it just something you said, this is what we want to do? Because you're still writing. It's not like you're sitting there going, this is our swan song. We're getting the hell out of here. But why'd you decide to come out with that now?
Well, we were asked to. The company called Plastic Head, British independent distribution company, and they do our merch. And they said, we're getting asked a lot if you've got like some stuff coming out, and particularly kind of reworks or re-records of your biggest hits. And we hadn't even thought about it. We hadn't even considered it. And he said, I think there's he said, well, it's not going to be this tsunami of success. He said, but there's enough interest to warrant doing it. And so we did. So we kept the recording budget because we pay for it. We're independent, so we pay for everything. Kept the recording budget really low. We got in there. We used some songs we've already worked on. We were previously done in the last few years, and then we re-recorded sort of the biggest tracks and did the whole thing in about 8 days. Then mixed it off, and that's why we did it. Really, it was their interest, and the response in Europe has been really good. We're going over to Berlin to a couple of press days, and so the response over there has been great. So we're pleased we did it.
Yeah, and we were determined not just to do a remix. I mean, some bands just. They make a
remaster
or whatever it is. I can't. It's a cop out basically. We wanted to, partly because we've been doing these songs live, and we had little ideas that come to us while we were doing that. We wanted to commit them to tape, so to speak, and so actually re-recording some of these songs was really good. And also, half the album is songs that nobody's heard because we've been recording and writing throughout this whole pandemic nonsense, and so, radio wasn't interested in playing anything new we had. So we wanted to put it on the album. That's what we did.
Now you also you had a book come out. Now tell me.
Yeah,
I mean, because I always, I'm someone, I'm in the business world too, and people will sit there and go, oh, I'll be in a networking thing, and I'll go, oh yeah, I read this bit, and they tell a business book, and I'm like, I have no idea what that is. I said, yeah, I read the Motley Crue book. It was great. I said, if I want to read, I want to be entertained. I don't want to hear about some motivational bullshit because that doesn't affect me. What made you guys decide to write a book? And I want you to tell me after you tell me why. I want you to each tell me a really good story from the book.
Okay.
Watch out.
We were
you can say whatever you want.
Okay. We were writing a book about 8-9 years ago. And then the lady we were working with became unwell. And so, and she was a very, very sweet lady. And so we went off, we lost momentum. Then we went back on the road and forgot about it. Then I got a Facebook message from a guy called Joel McIver. And Joel writes rock biographies. And he does reviews and everything. He's a bass player, does loads of music stuff. But doing music biographies is one of his things. And he said, have you ever thought of doing it? And I told him the story where we were, then it stopped. And he said, well, he said, I think I can get you a book deal with this, and I think we should look at it. So that was it. So we met up with Joel. He said, this is how we're going to do it. So we went out to, where was that place we went to? Then we went to Devon.
Otterton.
Yeah, Otterton in Devon, which is southwest England. And we went down there for a week in a little cottage. Literally did about 7 hours. We did 25,000 words. I think we spoke 25,000, 30,000 words, which he then puts into an app, and the app gets it right about 80%, 90% of the time.
Yeah. And
then he put the book together, then we edited it bit by bit with him, and that was it, really. We knew that most of it's being sold through the website. We did a book tour that went well. We said, it's done all right, actually, considering it was a pretty low profile release.
Yeah.
But it's done well. We were very happy with it.
And it was absolutely truthful. We didn't make anything up.
No, we didn't. No.
So
tell me a good scandalous story. I love rock and roll. It could be sex, drugs, rock. I love that kind of shit. That's what I live for.
I shall leave it to you. There's a couple.
All right. Okay. Let's have a think. Right, we were in Austria, I think it was, and we're doing this gig, and there's a meet and greet afterwards, and there's a very beautiful young girl there with her mum, and I can remember the girl's name. I can't remember what it was. The girl's name was Bianca, and we find out that she's 14, just about to come up 15, and the mum and our tour manager he says, you better have a chat with her. There's something weird going on here. So we say, well, okay. So we start chatting. And the mother says, Bianca, right in front of her daughter, says, Bianca is becoming very sexually aware. And it would make us all very happy if her first sexual experience could be to sleep with you and Richard. So are we going, right? She's 14.
Problem with that.
Yeah, she's 14. I imagine, not really my cup of tea, really, Andre's sex. So we said, well, I don't think that's going to work, really, see. And I thought, very, very complimentary. We're very attracted to you and your daughter. You're both lovely, but obviously we can't get involved in that. Then the dad walks in, something in his meet greet. The dad walks in, so we think, oh my God, it's all going to kick off, and he's going to start, whacking out and start trying to whack us and want to fight. He's right up for it. He is totally on board. Have you spoken to the boys? Do they want to embrace Bianca and take her into this sort of, this threesome sort of break her, abuse her virginity with right said friend? At which point we said to our tour manager, you've got to get us out of here. This is a whole lot of wrong right in front of us right now.
Exactly.
And so we, so we got out of that. I mean, there's a lot of stories. We were held at gunpoint in Lithuania. Because I called the promoter an arsehole because...
which apparently is the worst thing you can say out there.
The guy ripped us off for about £17,000, £18,000. I was pissed off, so I put him up against the wall. At his backstage, I said, can I start shouting? I've been drinking about it. Start shouting at him. And the next minute, we got these guys coming in with Doberman, suddenly it's all this, and I've got a rifle pointing in my head like this, and thinking, well, this has gone wrong. this isn't great. So then I phoned our agent, and he said, do you feel safe? So we said, no. And he said, well, you've got to do the show and get out there. And he said, as soon as you get home, he said, don't sleep overnight, just pack your stuff and get to the airport. He said, because you're no longer safe in I think it's Lithuania.
Yeah, well, we've got a friend who's a guitarist, and most of his gigs were in Russia. and he now there's no gigs for him in Russia because it's deemed to be too dangerous.
Yeah.
In fact, before all this other nonsense happened, we were in Russia doing a private party for an oligarch out there, which was itself was really bizarre. But the day after, which was a beautiful hot sunny day on a Saturday, I think it was, the local promoter said, "Do you want to go?" Tattoo were playing, the band Tattoo. They were playing in some fair or something. Would you like to go down and watch? So we thought, yeah, okay, we'll go down and watch. And so we go down, and the minute we get out of the van shoots off. So we're stranded in the middle of Moscow, and right within arm's reach, there are two guys with the sort of traditional Russian hats and their arms folded.
They've got masks on.
And they've got masks on, singing sort of Volga boatman type, traditional Russian stuff. I thought it was an anti-pollution demonstration because they had masks on, because I'm really thick. And Fred said, "No, this is an anti-gay thing. That's what this is an anti-gay thing." So
we were told it was a pro-liberty rights march.
Yeah, which it wasn't really. And and the two guys, there are lots of local TV pointing the cameras at these two guys at the scene. And when we got out of the van shut off. They noticed we were there, and all the cameras swung round to photograph us. And that really pissed the other two blokes off.
Yeah.
And within a heartbeat, they were all belting the living crap.
Yeah, they sucker punched Richard. Then I got help from behind, and I was getting kicked and punched and everything. So Richard's glasses fell off, and my bag fell off. So we've been to Russia before. You do not pick a fight
with ex-military.
With ex-military or anything. You just don't. And so we grabbed our stuff and legged it. And it turned out, I don't know if you've ever watched Benny Hill.
It was that.
What was we were running up the street, and I look round. We've got these neo-Nazi guys after us. We've got camera crew after us. At the back is our tour manager trying to catch up. So you've got all these people
running up the high street.
And suddenly I can't remember how this happened now, but we saw two coppers, and we know, it's quite a corrupt part of the world. So we gave the coppers some money, and we said, we're in trouble. These guys are chasing us. And they said, go in there. They sort of pointed to this restaurant. So we'd go into this restaurant that was closed, but they'd opened up. And so we hid at the back of this Italian restaurant, and these two coppers just lumped these guys who were chasing us. They just whacked them with their batons. And we stayed then the tour manager caught up with us, because the coppers told him where we were.
Yeah.
And then we had to get back to the hotel, grab our stuff, and then get to the airport. But it was all over the news. It was all over the UK press, and the interesting thing, loads of people said it was a gay rights thing. It wasn't really. It was a civil rights, freedom of speech kind of protest. And what we found out, the reason we got beat up, partly it was neo-Nazis who don't like
anything.
It was also the mayor of Moscow apparently hadn't given it a license.
Yeah.
So the reason the police were particularly aggressive and the whole thing went wrong really quickly is because it wasn't actually legal. He refused to give it a license. We weren't told that. We were just told it was this. We were led to believe it was this sort of fate with people, it was.
That's what I thought it'd be like.
Yeah, with ice creams and
bouncy castles.
And they steamed into us, man.
Now you guys had a really interesting life. Really interesting career. What is your highlights? What is the highlight of your career? Each of you address this. Was it getting a number one hit? Was it maybe, falling in love? Was it being successful? What to each of you, what is the highlight of your career?
I think, well, for me, it was going back to Germany with a hit record in 2001, because that was us proving the point. Because between 2001 and 94, 95, 96, we were dead in the water. And so that was I remember that very, very clearly. The child positions have never given me a woody, really, not really.
We were in Miami in late February, early March 92.
That was good.
And we'd hired a car. And we were in Coconut Grove, and we were trying to get downtown in Miami. We didn't know where we were going. And one of us is surfing on the radio, and we literally just heard, we got a good signal, and it said, this week's number one is Right Said Forever, I'm Too Sexy. And that was a really special moment, because when you actually hear it, your record company can tell you, when you actually hear it on the radio, DJ going, this is America's number one, that made me think, Jesus, that's pretty serious. And also, I think some of the working with a charity called Last Wishes and Dreams, which is terminally ill kids who want their favourite thing to happen before they die. And this one kid we met had cancer, about 9 years old, and he wanted all our T-shirts and our CDs and photos all buried with him. And that is really special.
Stuff like that
is really extraordinary, I think. And when you can touch someone, whatever people think of you're always going to have your haters and the rest of them. But there are moments in I'm sure it's every artist, I'm sure they have their own stories. But that was, that was really quite emotional, really.
It was. Yeah. I think a lot of, and also it's just because of a track that it's weird. I think there's difference between what punters feel and what the business feels about that track. Punters like it because it just cheers them up. If they have lots of memories about dancing in pubs with their girlfriends or whatever it is, the industry, a little bit like PSY, I think, and that song he had, whatever, it was Gangnam Style. It was one of those songs that punters absolutely loved. People liked it, but the business turned its nose up at it because it just wasn't sophisticated. It wasn't Tom York. It wasn't, you know what I mean? So I think there's a real, and I remember many years ago, I remember seeing Dustin Hoffman talking on a TV show, an interview. He says, "You'll never get an Oscar for a comic role. It'll never happen."
Yeah.
And I think there's an element of that about Sexy. You won't get plaudits for that kind of song.
Yeah.
You just won't.
I mean, one thing that we think about quite a lot, we've co-written 4 American #1 records. We're us, Taylor Swift, Drake, and Beyonce. And we've never been nominated for a Grammy, ever. And I always think that's really weird.
They've never even mentioned it in the UK.
It's really weird. And in the UK, they don't even talk about these days.
They would rather us just disappear into the sunset.
Yeah, so we're quite used to being on the fringes. Yeah, we are.
Yeah. It is irritating.
I have one final question for you guys. What's the future? What's the future writing? What do you guys see in the next 5 years? You said you're writing. Where would you like to see, are you going to tour? Or what are you guys going to do? Because, you sit there, it's a time, everyone, after the pandemic, everyone wants to see music, concerts are packed, people are just having fun. What are you guys going to do? What's your 5-year plan?
5-year plan is to go back on the road.
With a live band.
Yeah, we just want to go out and start playing. We thought we were going to do it this year, had a few things get in the way. We're actually now literally just talking to a brand new European agent and promoter, and the same in the UK. So we expect to be out next year. We just want to do a lot of shows. Not really bothered about much else, really. We'll definitely do more writing, definitely recording, but the immediacy of the artist in front of the audience is what we've missed a lot.
And also just to have a band that you really like.
Yeah, just playing, man.
Just to get a band together that you just really, really like, and is making the sound that you like.
Yes.
It's a real, when it comes to the point when I'm sitting in some care home somewhere and I've got my feet up staring at the sea, if I've done that, if I can look back and know that was a really good band, that would be that's my thing.
Yeah, I think that would be, I think that's
so I've got 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely.
This has been awesome, guys. You guys are great. People, go check out their website, rightsetfred.com. Go get the album, the singles. Go read their book. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 965 episodes. You can email me at coopertalk.net. Twitter, I'm at coopertalk. Instagram, at coopertalk1. What are your guys' Twitter's handle?
Twitter is at the Freds. Instagram is Right Said Fred Official. Facebook is Right Said Fred Official. That's it. Yeah.
So people, check them out. Remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.
Nice one.